Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the Fifth Quarter Podcast. As we try to record this intro for the fifth time, we've been dying laughing. I'm your host, Devin, as always, joined by my co-host, Jaden, as we continue our top 10 position rankings. This week, we are on to running backs. We also got some NFL free agency and trade news to look at, along with the NFL Combine that's going on currently. Now, I do want to emphasize, we are recording this on Friday night instead of our usual Saturday night, so we are going to miss out on a little bit of things from tomorrow, which is unfortunate, but anything big happens, we'll definitely mention it in next episodes. But yeah, if you guys are a new listener, make sure to hit that subscribe, make sure to rate us 5 stars, and if you are a reoccurring listener, make sure to leave a like, make sure to comment what you think about our top 10 running backs. And you guys know how we start these videos off. Pregame talk with my main man, Jaden. What do we got today?
So today we got, and this is, kind of foreshadowing for later in the episode. With the NFL draft coming up, I wanted to ask you, who is one player you were right about in your pre-draft, analysis through the years of you watching football and getting into pre-draft stuff, and who was one player you were wrong about?
Oh, this is a good one because I was wrong about a lot.
I also want to say too, like, we're not really like super big draft nerds.
Yeah.
We don't have some 6-round sleeper that we pick and turns out to be a Pro Bowler, All Pro, or whatever.
Yeah.
So I just want to make that 100%. Clear before you give one.
Yeah. I always say when it comes to the draft, I like to get like really familiar with, I would say, around 100 prospects, but I want to lock in on about like 50. I would say about the first round to the middle of the second round, like those type of prospects. I want to be locked in, keened in, know their strengths, this and that, but I'll be familiar with probably 100, maybe even a little bit more just from, popularity in college and whatnot. But yeah, that's interesting. I got a lot of misses. I can go through. I got a lot of high draft picks that were misses. I'm sure a lot of people were big fans of these. Jeff Okudah is probably my biggest one. And that one, I really just can't take fault for it because that guy, you watch his college tape, it's some of the best from a corner you'll ever see in history. The guy was as clean as it comes. Zero penalties his junior year in college. The guy was a monster. Just perfect technique all around. It's just mind-boggling to me that he did not work out, even just to be like an average corner in the league. He couldn't even be that. And that just really shows you how talented you have to be once you make that league, man. You can't give up. You got to keep grinding, and you got to keep going. A similar guy that I was pretty high on, Isaiah Simmons, another guy that was a freak of nature in college, and I was even hoping my Raiders got him in that draft. He ended up, obviously going to the Cardinals and has now bounced around from team to team and just never really turned into that guy that a lot of people thought he could have been. I think it could be a thing where you could look at he ended up in the wrong schemes or whatever, but I think talent always over cases that, poor coaching, this and that. He wasn't really the same talent once he got to the league. I'm trying to think of some other guys that I was pretty high on. Or pretty low on, or I should say. I know a receiver that I was really high on that panned out that I was begging the Raiders to draft was CeeDee Lamb. Going into that draft, I was so high on him. I loved him in college at Oklahoma, and it was kind of like, it was almost foreshadowed throughout the season. You would see these mock drafts coming up, and a lot of them had CD going to the Raiders, and I really keened in on him, and I'm like, dude, this guy is an absolute superstar in the making, and, the Raiders ultimately went on to select Henry Ruggs in that draft, where we all know where that went. And that was a guy that I was really high on. I wish he would have ended up in Vegas, but his career's doing pretty good in Dallas. Let's see. Is there any? a little bit biasness. I really liked Trayvon Merrick going into the draft, and he ended up coming to my Raiders. I remember when we traded up for him in that second round, and I was pretty stoked about that. And he's obviously been a really solid safety throughout his career. Nothing like a top, 5 guy, but, arguable at that number 10 spot, I could say. But he's had a pretty successful career. Who are some other guys that I was really high on? A guy that I was really shaky on, that I've never really talked about this, I don't think, specifically to you maybe. A guy that I didn't really know how good he was going to be. I just thought maybe he could be a solid player. I remember when Justin Jefferson went to the Vikings, I didn't really know what to gauge from that. Obviously he was a great talent in college, but I just didn't know if I saw him being the level of receiver that he shared a class with. When you look at a CeeDee Lamb and even a Henry Ruggs and things like that. Well, obviously coming in, Henry Ruggs, and even a Jerry Jeudy, which was in that same draft class. Another guy that potentially could have went to my Raiders.
Even a Jalen Reagor.
Yeah, Jalen Reagor.
That was consensusly looked at as a bad pick, even at the time.
It's so funny how the Eagles had their stretch of just like really rough draft picks, and then also like some of the greatest consecutive drafts you'll ever see. Really weird from them. But yeah, Justin Jefferson was a guy that I was really just not in or out of. A huge pause on that. But just a guy I didn't really know how to gauge. I didn't know how good or bad he was going to be. Just a guy that I kind of had to wait and see. And I mean, he's turning himself into one of the best receivers of all time. But those are the only guys that are really coming to the top of my head. I mean, I'm trying to think. I don't. You know what? This is probably the biggest one, and this is embarrassing. But as a Raider fan, when I first started getting into the NFL around that 2012 to 2014 range, I remember the first draft that I really locked in on was 2014. That was the year where the Raiders ended up with Khalil Mack and Derek Carr. I watched both of those picks live watching the draft. And the following year was 2015, where we selected Amari Cooper, I want to say at number 5. And I was a Kevin White guy over Amari Cooper, which is really bad because we all know Amari Cooper had a really successful career, tons of season over 1,000 yards, a Pro Bowl every year type of guy. And Kevin White did, not let's just say not pan out, I guess you could say. And that was really bad. Like I specifically remember when that draft happened. And I was at my grandma's house, like saying, like, "Oh, I don't like that the Raiders picked this guy." And I was even telling my dad that. And luckily I didn't make the decisions for them back then. But with seeing how their draft history went throughout the years, I kind of wish I was. But that's really all that I can think of. Do you personally? I'm trying to think of anybody that I can remember you talking about. Do you personally have any?
That's what I've been trying to figure out, like before the pod when I was looking.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to find somebody that I had a miss on that I really liked. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I mean, I didn't have any. I didn't, like I said, I mean, we don't go I don't go like super deep into the drafts. I start to get into, draft season around this time. Mm-hmm. And I kind of, form my opinion. I don't really, watch the film from the guys in college on myself. I kind of form my opinions on, seeing other creators, what they think, and, seeing stuff, a little, combine stuff for myself. I'll say one a player that I liked, and I was surprised even, dropped to the second round, was Joey Porter Jr. in 2023.
Yeah.
I thought he was was on the same level as, some of those guys in that class, like Christian Gonzalez and Devin Witherspoon and whatnot. I was really surprised when he dropped out the first round. Mm-hmm. Guys like Deonte Banks getting picked over, in which Deonte Banks was looked at as like a pretty good pick at the time.
Yeah.
Or a decent pick at least, but that's one player. And, Joey Porter now, a top 10 corner, you could probably say. That's why I've been trying to look. I don't know. I don't feel like I haven't really like missed other than like a Falcon player maybe that we drafted that I liked.
Yeah.
That I guess I missed on. I don't know. Like I guess like maybe like a Arnold Ebiketie.
Mm.
And I know a lot of other people were, high on him coming out of college. And we were able to snag him in the second round. I thought he'd be a lot better than he is right now, which he's, a solid pass rusher, but that's really kind of all he provides is, he's not an every down edge. He's just, very toolsy guy that, can generate pressure from time to time. But yeah, that's all I really got.
That's fair. You know where I thought you were going with this when you were first talking about the draft? I thought you were going to talk about if I have any like players from this draft upcoming that I'm a big fan of or something like that, because I have started to do a little bit of NFL draft research, watching some film and some tape on some guys, and I have found my one player team match that I am in love with. And, once our NFL mock draft episode comes out, if that pick lands on me, I'm definitely going to be taking that. But your best corner's brother, Avion Terrell, I am such a fan of him to the Rams at 13. I mean, I've been watching some of the stuff on him, and obviously I was familiar with his game. I caught a couple games of him this year, but not too many. But man, I was surprised at how involved he is in the run. I mean, they had him lined up next to an edge a lot. They had him blitzing from his corner position a lot. I mean, a pretty aggressive in the run game. Obviously not the biggest guy, but something that I did not know before I really dove into that.
Yeah, he could kind of play like everywhere. He could play in the slot. He could play, on the boundary. Mm-hmm. You could move him around a lot. Yeah, like I said, he's not afraid to get, dirty.
Yeah,
get in that run game.
Yeah, so that's my early draft crush once we get into that part of the off season. But yeah, great pregame talk as always. We do have a good amount of things to get into before our top 10 rankings. As I mentioned, we're going to start it off with some trade news. The New York Jets are sending DN Jermaine Johnson to the Tennessee Titans in exchange for defensive tackle Tavondre Sweat. Sorry about that. And this is not obviously a league-altering trade. Nothing too crazy. Two, solid players for sure. Nothing too crazy. But the big thing that this shows is the Jets are most likely going to take an edge at that number 2 position, trading away a guy like Jermaine Johnson, who obviously has not been the player that they wanted him to be. He had a really solid second season in the league or year 2 in the league, a sophomore year, but really hasn't panned out with that first round pick that they thought they were getting. So that's really the only big news from this is the Jets are pretty much guaranteed to take an edge linebacker type of player at that number 2 position, which was already speculated, but this pretty much confirms it. We do have some other trade news. Now, not a trade that has happened, but the Colts have given quarterback Anthony Richardson permission to seek a trade. The Colts and Anthony Richardson agreed in a meeting that a fresh start would be beneficial for Richardson's career, and the two sides will work on finding the right trade partner. Richardson, the former number 4 overall pick, is just 23 years old. This is something that I think a lot of fans saw coming. I mean, Richardson's career so far has just been riddled with injuries, and even when he's on the field, it's been a lot of downs, some really high highs, but a lot of downs. And this is a guy that could definitely, have a career resurgence in another spot. You always want to give that benefit of the doubt to these first round picks. I mean, I always said with a player like that, when you're selected that high, you're going to get a lot of leeway. You're going to be in the league for a long time. I mean, we see it with a lot of different quarterbacks in the league. I mean, even a guy like Sam Darnold, who has now flourished into arguably a top 10 quarterback in the league, just won a Super Bowl. This guy looked like he shouldn't even be in the NFL after his first 5 years. So you really never know with these quarterbacks, and I think that's why they always try to give these guys that long of a leash. But you put Anthony Richardson in a good position with, a good offensive-minded coach and someone that can really, fix his tools up, because he certainly was a very, very raw prospect coming into the league. So if he ends up, maybe with the Rams, maybe a Sean McVay, sit him for a year under Matthew Stafford and then see what he can do, I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind something like that. So a lot of different options for Anthony Richardson. I think, that's interesting. I want to pull up. I just want to see if I can find the top 5 teams. I think the Rams is a big one that I would say. Let me see. Let me look up just to get my brain flowing a little bit. I think the Rams are number 1. I think you could look at the Cardinals, but damn, are they a mess? I'm trying to think of other teams. I mean, the Jets, but again, a similar thing. I don't want, Anthony Richardson to go to a position where he's got to just be thrown into the fire once again. I think Richardson is a guy that has to go to a team that has, a set in stone offense where he can sit behind and learn under some great players. I mean, the Dolphins are a team that's going to be looking for a quarterback. That one is, a little bit better than the other situations, but I'm still not 100% sure where their direction is going. I'd have to see what happens this year. The Browns potentially, the Steelers potentially. Yeah, there's a couple teams. I don't think any of them beat the Rams. I think it just fits too well. So if I had to predict and I had to hope for him to land somewhere, I think my pick would be the Rams. Best for his career and potentially for the Rams, depending on how much they can get out of him. And the last bit of news that we want to talk about is the Cowboys officially franchise tagged star wide receiver George Pickens. Something that, we all saw coming. There have been reports over the last couple of days that this news was going to break, and now it's official. So there's been reports that the two sides are trying to work on a deal. Now, I don't know if I love that from the Cowboys side. I'm just not a fan of paying 2 receivers and a quarterback that type of money. You see that going on with the Bengals and how that's, panned out for them over the past couple years. And I just look at it the same way with the Cowboys. Sure, they have a super talented offense, an offense that can win them a good amount of games, but defense is ultimately what gets you to the playoffs and wins you games in the playoffs. And that is, undoubtedly what the Cowboys are trying to do year in and year out, but just haven't been very successful in the Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb era. The NFLPA report cards dropped, and we're going to go over those. We're going to start out with the big ones, which is GM grades, head coach grades, and ownership grades. So I'll start out with GM because I think this is interesting. We have, 3, 6. We have 7 teams that received the highest grade on here, which was an A. We have the Panthers, Broncos, Colts, Rams, Vikings, Seahawks, and Commanders all receiving an A. A ton of teams receiving an A- in there, including my Raiders. Some teams with some B+ ratings featuring Jaden's Falcons. And the lowest team, the team with the worst graded GM, is the Giants. Very, very interesting. As far as NFL head coaches, we have 2 head coaches that received an A+. That is Sean McVay and Dan Quinn. And I'm interested if you take anything from this, but Kevin Stefanski was graded as the worst, or I guess the lowest head coach at a C-. Do you take anything away from that, or is that more so just the Browns had a rough situation last year, and I think people took it out on him?
Yeah, I think maybe a mix of both. I mean, I don't know. I didn't keep too much up with the Browns last year. I don't know how things were going in the locker room. What was their locker room?
I know that there
ranking?
was a lot of
Was it just a lot of bad vibes going around in that organization?
it really was. Obviously, there was the big controversy with the Shador stuff, and I think that potentially rubbed people the wrong way.
I mean, their locker room as a whole ranked as an F.
Yeah.
I mean, if your locker room's ranking that bad, like I don't see how the head coach can be ranked high. I feel like the head coach kind of
he controls the locker room.
Mitigate kind of the locker room stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't think, like I said, I mean, I like Stefanski. I don't think he's a bad coach. I mean, I'd like to go in previous years and see what he was ranked as. I don't know, but I think that was just a really bad situation. I wouldn't lean too heavily into that.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree.
Personally, at least. But, Cleveland Brown fans might think different. I don't know.
Yeah. The NFL ownership grades are the last big ones that we have here. The Vikings, Ravens, Broncos, Commanders all grade out at an A+, the highest. My Raiders right behind there with an A. And the lowest team on here, worst graded, the only one that received an F was the Cardinals. And boy, oh boy, are
what is
the
this
Cardinals in a rough. This is ownership grades.
Ownership.
And this is a really rough spot. The Cardinals might be in the worst spot that a team can be. I mean, did you see the report of the 3 quarterbacks that the Cardinals are interested in for their quarterback search? It is Malik Willis, who could be something, but you're gauging it off of a couple games with Green Bay, Tyson Bagent, and Geno Smith. And along with, obviously those rough quarterbacks, I mentioned that they have an F of ownership. They are overall ranked 31 of 32 teams for these NFLPA grades. Treatment of families is a D+. Food and dining is a C-. Locker room is an F-. Weight room is a D+. I mean, just all areas that affect players directly, and they have some of the lowest grades of anybody. I mean, I don't know. You could probably argue the Jets, but I don't know another team that has it worse than the Cardinals right now. And this was a team that, 2021 started out 8-0 with a third-year Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, a team that was looking like they could make some noise, and man, oh man, have they fallen. Do you know who the 32nd or the last ranked team is?
That's what I'm looking at right now. I was just about to say something.
You're looking at it right now?
Yeah, because as I was coming off of the locker room and head coach stuff, that's something you see when you look at the Steelers, who are the 32nd F- locker room, but an A coach.
Yeah,
head coach.
I'm assuming locker room maybe doesn't go into vibes. It's more so maybe the condition of it. Maybe the actual lockers, if they got TVs up in there. I'm assuming it has to play into something like that.
Possibly. Because
I feel like those two go hand in hand with, head coach and locker room. That just feels.
Yeah.
It feels
like. Just Mike Tomlin's just really that. I mean, you've seen obviously when he stepped down, it was out of nowhere, especially for everybody in the organization, and how hard it kind of hit them. Right? And they said Rodgers was shedding tears over it.
Yeah.
He'd been there 1 year,
And the other thing that's interesting is, I wonder if free agents look at this at all and it affects them, because for the Pittsburgh Steelers, treatment of families F. Home field advantage or home game field, F-. Locker room, F-. Team travel, F. Team ownership,
I was looking at a lot of teams have F on home game field.
Really? And I wonder,
I don't know if this is just at the bottom, but Titans F-, Bucks F minus, Seahawks F. Niners, that's good, A minus. Steelers F minus. Jets F minus. I mean, that makes sense. Giants F minus might be the worst field in sports. Saints C.
Yeah,
Patriots D.
It is weird. I obviously,
does anybody like their fucking field?
It's just the condition. I'm assuming versus grass versus turf, things like that, or how many injuries they get. Personal experience type of things. I mean, yeah, that is weird because I was also thinking, is this like a new stadium versus old stadium thing? Because the Raiders got an A minus. They have one of the newest stadiums in the league. But then the Chargers, who also have a really new stadium, they're at a C. So it's not.
No.
Like off of that. Yeah, I don't know. That is weird.
I'm trying to find where the hell are the Rams. This isn't alphabetical order.
The Rams are between the Chargers and the Dolphins, sandwiched in between them. They're overall.
Okay. I was just trying to see if they matched up with the Chargers.
Yeah. I literally saw that as I scrolled. The Dolphins also finish out as the number one team, I believe, back-to-back seasons. And, I mean, they don't have a single grade in the B. Treatment of families B+, home field A-, food and dining A, nutritionist, dietitian A-, locker room A-, training room A, training staff A. Like, it just goes on and on. I mean, that's one of the better franchise, which I guess maybe now that I'm reading this, maybe Anthony Richardson there wouldn't be too bad, but this goes into a lot of different things than what I was talking about. But yeah, I mean, free agents are going to see that and be pretty excited if this is something that they even take into account. I think really it's just a fun thing that gets the clicks. I don't know how much it really ties into that, but certainly I'm going to assume it's going to affect the Cardinals and the Steelers a ton being that low. But me and Jaden, our teams, respectively end up in the top 10. I believe it was number 6 and number 8 for us. So we take those. We take those all day of the week. The last bit of news before we get into our top 10 rankings is obviously the NFL Combine that is currently going on. And boy, oh boy, are there some big storylines to go over. And we'll start off with, the biggest one, the guy that stole the show, Sonny Styles. I mean, this guy's essentially Captain America in shoulder pads. I mean, just an unreal 6'5", 244, had a 43.5-inch vertical, a broad jump of, 11.2, a 40-yard dash of 4.46, a 20-yard split, 2.6, 10-yard split, 1.56. I mean, the dude is a freak. He essentially, I would say, locked himself into the number 2 pick. I think the Jets maybe go Arvell Reese just for positional value. I think they'd look for a guy that could potentially come off the edge more than an off-ball guy. But my goodness, Sonny Styles. I mean, have a day. Have a day. This was a guy, I want to see if I had it bookmarked. They do the RAS scores. It's a relative athletic score. I want to say he graded out as like a perfect 10, or they adjusted it. He was a perfect 10. He went down to a 9.99 at linebacker. I think his exact same testing as a corner is like a 9.98. As a receiver, it's like a perfect 10. It's like unreal. You put him at all these
same
different
with the
positions.
Safety.
Yeah.
And defensive end. He's a little lower because he'd be smaller, 244. Not ideal for end, but 987 unofficial. Yeah, I saw that too.
I mean, the dude is unreal. I mean, you look at him compared to they got him compared to DK, Nick Eamon-Wari, and he's just, as the kids say, I mean, frame mogging these guys. Unreal, just super. And then his brother goes out there as a safety and runs a 4.27 40-yard dash, the fastest by a safety since 2003. I mean, crazy stuff, and that's not even where it's ending. Kenyon Sadiq, a guy that's probably going to be a first-round pick as a tight end, goes out there and runs a 4.39. has a 43.5-inch vertical. I mean, 6'3". I mean, unreal. 241. Hit a high of 23.2 miles per hour. That's the same as Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah, there's 9 linebackers this year at testing that ran under a 4.6 40.
I mean,
obviously 40 is not the end all be all, but I mean I feel like this year. I was talking to Devin about this. I don't know if this is recency bias, but I feel like this year is one of the craziest years in combine history so far, and we haven't even got to the skill positions and quarterbacks yet.
That's what I was going to say.
And I wish so bad. Obviously, people talk about this all the time, and players, they're not forced to go out and compete or not compete, but test at the combine and things like that. They have pro days where they most likely will, but it sucks that the top corners didn't test. I would have loved to see what they ran and jumped at and all this stuff. It would have made this year even crazier.
Yeah.
But I know that's a real thing going on. Like, a lot of fans think like, oh, if you're invited to the combine, you should be running or should be doing all this and all that. Really, I mean, if you're a solidified top, first round guy, I mean, there's nothing a combine is really gonna do, especially at these positions, to really raise your draft stock that much, especially at corner like that. Like, if anything, it'll only like negate it. It'll make it worse. If you don't run a sub 4.5 40 or whatever, stuff like that. Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of I seen watching live streams, a lot of people mad at that, the fact that these top corners weren't testing. But at the end of the day, I mean, they're solidified first round guys.
Yeah.
Hats off to whatchamacallit. Hats off to Colton Hood, who is a solidified probably first round guy too, and he decided to test, and he went out, ran himself a 4.4, 4.44.
Yep,
did really well for himself. But yeah,
and the other freak, I don't know if you said this, but Vanderbilt tight end Eli Stowers, a 45.5-inch vertical. Are you kidding me? That video is so nuts to watch. That doesn't even look real. It does not look real. I cannot believe that. The combine is always something that's super.
And also, don't let this distract you. That none of those two tight ends you named did not even have the highest RAS score.
At a tight end, or you just
at tight end? Yeah,
really.
Sam Roche, tight end out of Stanford, posted a 9.99 RAS, higher than Sadiq and Stowers, who had a 9.43 and a 9.46.
Sheesh.
I mean, Sam Roche is 6'6", 267, ran a 4.7, a 38-inch vert, 10 foot 6-inch broad jump. I mean, he tested crazy all across the board. I mean, even crazier at his size.
Yeah.
Given, I think Sadiq and Stowers are not as big as him, which is why his numbers are, not as fast as a 40-yard dash, not as, high as a vertical, but at his size, I think it made his RAS a lot better.
Do you want to know something interesting? Obviously, the NFL Combine is a ton of fun. It's excited to go crazy over these, just freaks on the field. Do you know the top 30 fastest wide receivers in NFL Combine history? How many do you think have had a 1,000-yard season?
Top 30 fastest?
Yeah, the top 30 fastest. And this is all, actually, funny enough, this is all since 2000. The top 30 fastest have all been since 2000.
Off the top of my head, maybe like 3.
One.
Only
one receiver. There's no way you would guess it, but it's Santana Moss. He's the only receiver in the top 30 fastest at the combine to ever have an 1,000-yard season. Now, there is a lot of things on here where it's like, Matthew Golden, I think could potentially get there one day. You got some other guys on there that Xavier Worthy.
I think Worthy would get there if he had a full season.
He could potentially
Travis
be a guy
Kelce
there.
didn't decide to fucking run over my 4th-round pick, knock his shoulder out of place.
So there's a little bit of exceptions on here that could definitely get there, but yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. And I think, what is it? 9 of the top 30 have been first-round picks. And Santana Moss, he was also a first-round pick. But yeah, that's crazy. That kind of shows
John
you to not
Ross, baby.
Yeah, not overreact too much to the combine, but it's definitely something fun to get excited about and to watch. And yeah, that's it. So let's get into it. Let us get into our top 10 rankings. This one was maybe the hardest that we've done so far out of the quarterbacks and receivers. I just feel like I'm too low on a lot of people, and then I keep on going up my list, and I'm like, we're just talented. It's just a talented league. That's really all you can say. There are a lot of talented running backs that we have, and I'm excited to see where we have them ranked. So I started out with number 10 last week, if I'm not mistaken. So
I think I did. No,
did you? Maybe you did. You know what?
You first.
I'll start it out. At my number 10 spot for our top 10 running backs, I have none other than the Super Bowl MVP, Kenneth Walker. And this one was one of the rankings that I was talking about. It was very difficult to place him because he's a guy that split carries with Zach Charbonnet, a guy that really didn't get to showcase his full potential until really the playoffs, where, I mean, he just went off. He went off, and obviously resulting in the Super Bowl MVP. This is a guy that was 2nd in offensive grade, 3rd in rushing grade, 5th in forced missed tackles at 61. He was 4th in 10-plus yard runs at 31, also 3rd in 15-plus yard runs. So a guy that just took advantage of his opportunity, and a guy that I really think is going to have a year next year, considering that Charbonnet is going to miss a huge portion, if not the entire next year. So, fantasy-wise, dynasty-wise, I think Kenneth Walker is going to have a really good year. I mean, this is a guy that...
You also have to factor in what team he may be playing for next year.
Yeah, that's very fair, because it's very likely that he could not come back to Seattle. I think it's an interesting thing with it if he should stay in Seattle, because I think he's talented. He's going to do his thing no matter what. But you do have to think, Clint Kubiak obviously gone to my Raiders, and that was a guy that really opened up that run game. He's a guy that just knows how to take advantage of that. So it is interesting to see if he's going to be able to make his mark on this team or potentially another team. But yeah, I wanted to pull up these numbers just so I can really emphasize it. In the playoffs, he went up against the Niners in the divisional, 19 for 116 yards and 3 touchdowns. The championship against the Rams had 19 for 62 yards and a touchdown to go along with 4 catches for 49 yards. And then in the Super Bowl, his Super Bowl MVP performance, 27 carries for 134 yards, tagged along 26 receiving yards. Had nearly 500 total yards in the playoffs, along with 5 touchdowns. I mean, the guy had an unreal playoffs, and that is something that certainly I take into account when looking at these rankings. And a guy that it feels wrong to have him this low, but again, it's a very, very talented list. So Kenneth Walker falls to number 10 for me.
I also have Kenneth Walker at 10. So everything you said.
Yeah. We agree out the gate, which I'm curious to see if we do going forward, but let's hear your 9, and then we'll be able to know.
We have the same exact top 10.
Imagine.
My 9 is Josh Jacobs. He's the player that I forgot about. I was telling Devin. I recently added him. I had him at 10, honestly, before the pod, but I decided last minute to switch him and Kenneth Walker. Josh Jacobs, I think, is just a more consistent back than Kenneth Walker. I think Kenneth Walker still has the problems of, that he's kind of always had coming into the league, that he's sometimes a more a east and west runner rather than a north and south runner. He kind of dances around a lot and doesn't just take the ball upfield at times, and that's exactly what Josh Jacobs does. Mm-hmm. He's a very consistent back. He's good in the receiving game. Yeah.
I can agree with that. Josh Jacobs did not make my list. He was a guy that
is surprising.
Yeah, he was a guy that I was going back and forth at number 10, at number 9, and a guy that
he had a really good year this year too. No,
he had a little bit
numbers
of
wise, or no?
He had a little bit of a dip from the year prior. I think he had let me see for sure. Yeah, only 900 yards this year. Did tag on 13 touchdowns, but definitely
a little inefficient too.
Definitely a dip from last year, which I had to take into account. I mean, if he would have had similar numbers to last year, it's a guy that I think makes this list comfortably, but ultimately did not. At my number 9 spot, a guy who, when we were talking before the pod, you thought didn't make my list, but he ultimately did. I have Kyren Williams at number 9, a guy that had over 1,200 yards rushing, 10 touchdowns, tagged along 3 through the air, 4.8 per carry. A guy that definitely benefits from the offense that he plays on, but the biggest knock that you could look at Kyren Williams' games from the previous years was he was a fumbling machine. He was a guy that just put the ball on the floor too much, and this year he only had 2 fumbles. So a part of his game that really knocked him a lot, he improved on that a ton to be one of the more secure running backs in the league. A guy that was 4th in rushing grade at an 87, 1st in success percentage, and 3rd in EPA per rush. So as I mentioned, those statistics are a little bit more team-based, but again, you look at those numbers and you're going to see some of the best running backs in the league high up there, and this was a guy that graded out very high in those statistics. So Kyren Williams ends up falling at number 9 for me. I'll move on to my number 8 running back, and similar to Kenneth Walker, similar to a lot of these running backs, as I will get very repetitive here, a guy that was very, very hard to rank. I had him as high as 6. I dropped him to 7. I put him at 5. I just went back and forth so many times. I have the rushing champion, James Cook, as my number 8 running back. A guy that had over 1,600 yards this past year, 12 touchdowns on the ground, averaged 5.2 per carry, even got involved through the air with 291 receiving yards along with 2 touchdowns. It feels very low for him, and I think ultimately it's just, the guys above him I would rather take, I think have a better skill set and are just overall better running backs, and that just shows you how talented of a league we have. This was a guy that was 6th in rushing grade at an 84.4, 462 missed tackles, that is tied 3rd, and had 39 10-plus yard runs, which ranked 2nd. So a guy that had maybe the best year that he'll ever have in his career this past year, which it's going to be tough to beat 1,600 yards and 12 touchdowns for any running back. That is a hell of a year, and it feels wrong to have him this low, but again, it's tough to really get him any higher than this, and I really don't know if I'm disrespecting him or not, but I guess we'll see where Jaden has him and what you guys think. Maybe I'm disrespecting, but he falls at number 8 for me.
Yeah, my number 8, and my number 8 and 7, I had the reverse symbol next to, meaning I could see them swapping. I don't really care the thing is, my top 6 is set. I think these two dudes could swap between 8 and 7 for me. Knowing where you had James Cook, we're probably going to disagree on this. But I got Derrick Henry at my 8.
Wow.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Wow. Is he top 3 for you?
Wow. No, I'll let you go. We'll talk once we get to my Derrick Henry ranking. But wow. Okay.
My Derrick Henry ranking is at 8. Yeah. Derrick Henry obviously just put up a really good season. Statistic wise, I mean, almost 1,600 yards, 16 touchdowns. Seems a bit crazy having him this low, but I think he benefits a lot having Lamar Jackson in the backfield, and we seen that firsthand this year. Lamar Jackson went down, and he had that first game of the season where he went stupid, 170 yards, 2 touchdowns. But over the next, what week did Lamar go out? Lamar went down
I think it was
week 5. Week 5 he went out. Yeah,
I think it was the game after the Lions. So yeah, no, that would be week 4. That was against the Chiefs.
Or he went down in the Chiefs game, I think.
Yeah.
But, I mean, even before that, I mean, he had some low games. But after that, I mean, looking at it now, he did still have some good games. But
yeah,
I think he benefits. He's in, I think, one of the better positions of all these running backs on this list, having a running mate in the backfield that's as dangerous on the ground. Nobody else on this list really has a dual threat. I can't even say that. I'd be fucking talking shit if I say that. That is crazy. Because there's, James Cook with Josh Allen and all that. Yeah. Maybe I am too low on Derrick Henry, but I think I'm taking at least the top 6 guys above him going into next year. I believe in that statement. Looking at his numbers, it does seem a bit crazy having him at 8. Maybe I put him at 7, and number 7 I put at 8. But yeah, I think I would take these top 6 guys going into next year over him. Because Derrick Henry's he's going to be 33 next year.
Yeah, he's getting up there. I think 32.
You just can't expect him to keep doing this.
I mean, we say that,
but maybe you can.
Yeah,
but
he just put up 16 and 16 at 31.
We'll see if that's a bad ranking next year. I mean, maybe I was a bit too low on him, but yeah. My 7, CMC. Well, I guess my 8. Maybe I'll bump Henry up to 7. My 8 or 7, CMC. CMC, second in Offensive Player of the Year voting. Yep. He had a really good year. He did a lot for that Niners offense. Not the most efficient back, but I mean he had to bear a lot, with the injuries they suffered throughout the whole season and the things like that. He stepped up and he filled the role, and he got 413. He broke his career high touches in the season this year, and helped lead his team to many wins, and they went far in the playoffs, or I guess to the second round in the playoffs. But yeah, I think CMC at 8 or 7, whatever.
That's pretty fair.
That's probably around where you have him, I assume.
Yeah, I think my number 7 potentially. I don't think it'll get as big of a reaction from a Derrick Henry, but I think this might be the guy where we differ. You differ on Derrick Henry from me. I think potentially I might differ on this guy from you. I have Jonathan Taylor at number 7. And this is a guy that was on a record pace to start the year. I mean, the first 10 games of the year, 189 carries for 1,139 yards, 15 touchdowns, averaged 6 yards a carry. Also tagged along nearly 300 yards through the air along with 2 touchdowns. And then the last 7 games hit. He had 134 carries for 446 yards, 3 touchdowns, averaged 3.3 per carry, and also had 118 through the air. Now, trust me, I know Daniel Jones goes down with injury. A lot of things factor into that, but it was just really unfortunate to see him, really just go on that downhill stretch after a potential, all-time season on the way. 17 touchdowns in 10 games. This guy realistically could have hit a 25 plus in a year, and it was tough to see. This was a guy that, again, I'm going to keep saying it was just tough to rank. He ended up falling at number 7 for me. The 6 guys above him, I think I would take, and obviously you could argue that all these guys are more talented than him. A guy that was 7th in rushing grade, 2nd in missed tackles forced. He had the 2nd longest rush of the year at 83, and was another player that was tied 3rd in 10-plus yard runs at 36. So Taylor, if he would have kept it up, this guy could have easily been top 4, top 3, top 2 for me, but unfortunately, that last stretch of games really left a bad taste in my mouth, and he ends up at number 7 for me personally. My number 6 is Christian McCaffrey, that Jaden already touched on a little bit. Christian McCaffrey was a very polarizing player for the lone reason that he was terrible on the ground this year. And trust me, that 49ers offense dealt with so many injuries. He was tasked to really just carry the load on offense. A 69.1 rushing grade that ranked 28th of 29 qualified running backs. But on the flip side, he had a 91.2 receiving grade, which was first. And with that amount of touches, 413, he only had 2 fumbles. He by far led the league in touches and only had 2 fumbles. So a guy that put up 1,200 on the ground, 10 touchdowns, and nearly 1,000 through the air, along with 7 touchdowns. A guy that can take on that much of the offense and have a healthy season. When Christian McCaffrey is healthy, he's a Hall of Famer. You look at the past 4 years, he's been healthy. It's like 1,500 yards plus every single year total with 10 plus touchdowns every year. And I think 3 first-team All-Pros. That when the guy's healthy, he's a Hall of Famer. But it's just he can't play back-to-back years, which is very nervous going into next year because I'm scared that it might catch up to him, but I'm hoping it doesn't. I'm hoping that we get back-to-back healthy years of CMC. So he falls at number 6 for me.
My number 6 is the guy Devin obviously already named. I have James Cook at 6. Guy who led the league in rushing, was the lead back on the number 1 rushing team in the league. It doesn't get much better than him at the running back position. I think he's a very well-rounded back. He's well-rounded in terms of rushing. He doesn't get a lot of work in the receiving game. He's not really their receiving back. But in terms of rushing, I think he's very, very good all around. He's a solid power back. He's not the fastest guy, but that's one thing I always think when I look at James Cook. Through his whole year in the career in the NFL, he just doesn't look like he's moving that fast. I don't know. Is it just me or?
No, yeah, that's fair.
But he outruns people. He doesn't look the shiftiest. He kind of looks a little stiff at times.
He's almost gliding in a way. It's weird.
Yeah, and it's just nobody can tackle him. And especially this year, he really broke out. Led the league in rushing yards per game. Led the league in rushing. He was such a home run play hitter. I think he's a really good back. He's really fun to watch, at least from my perspective, because he just doesn't look like he's moving so spectacular like some of these guys on this list. But he's impossible to tackle.
Yeah.
My number 5, also somebody Devin already named, Jonathan Taylor. I agree he didn't really end the season well, but I think the way he started kind of carried him. And it's not like this is just his first year of being good. He's had really good years in his career. He led the league in rushing already. He had the Triple Crown in rushing already. That's not even really a thing, is that? Triple Crown? I don't know.
If he gets attempts, yards, and touchdowns, that would be.
I've just never heard them use that for a running back. But that first half or first, 60-70% of the season really carries it. It was amazing. I don't see any signs of him slowing down. He's only 27. I think he could come out next year and, do something similar. If not, just be more consistent throughout the season as the season goes on and get similar yards. I don't know if he'll have the same starts the next season as he had this year, but I think he's a really good back. He's one of the best home run play hitters in the league. He's just, it seemed like every week he was busting out like a 60-yard run earlier in this season.
Yeah.
He's a really good back.
Yeah. Those are all good points. My number 5 is a new name that we haven't talked about yet, and someone that fell quite a bit. I have Saquon Barkley at number 5, a guy that broke out for his unreal 2,000-yard season last year, and then this year just was a part of a messy Philly offense. And running backs are so peculiar with their rankings because it really can be a thing where a guy's number 1 year and then he falls pretty drastically the next year. And Saquon was a guy that I even considered dropping another spot, but I'm like, I can't disrespect him that much. I have to put some respect on that 2,000-yard season that he's just coming off of. I don't think this season really indicates how he is as a player. I think it was just overall that Philadelphia offense was a mess all around. You look at quarterback play, receiver play, offensive line, coaching, everything. It just wasn't where they were the year prior. So Saquon Barkley, I definitely think can easily jump back into this top 3, potentially even regain that number 1 spot, depending on what he does. But unfortunately, after this past season, it's just similar to Jonathan Taylor, left a bad taste in my mouth. He falls at number 5 for me. My number 4 ranking is the most underrated running back in the league and maybe the most underrated player in the league. Devin Achane is my number 4 running back. A guy that put up over 1,300 yards rushing, had 8 touchdowns on the ground, 5.7 per carry, had 488 through the air along with 4 touchdowns. And get ready, I got a lot of first rankings on here. First in offensive grade, first in rushing grade, first in 10-plus yard runs, first in yards after contact per attempt, first in 15-plus yard design runs. He was also second in EPA per rush, along with 7th in receiving grade. A guy that just really did it all on a team that,
What is 15-yard design runs?
I that's interesting because I tried to look into it, and I'm assuming you'll have plays where you'll come out in a pass play, they'll cancel it, they'll can it, and they'll audible to a run play. I am going to assume 15-plus yard design runs are runs that came out of the huddle and, there was no real adjustments made and they were running the football. That's my best guess from what I can tell from that, because that is weird. On PFF, it just has 10-plus yard runs like base, and then their 15-plus yards says designed runs. So that's my only guess that I got from that. But yeah, Devin Achane, as I mentioned, he is the most underrated running back in the league and maybe the most underrated player in the league. This was a guy that I wanted to put higher. I wanted to put him as high as number 2, but he ultimately falls at number 4 for me, and I'm expecting him to rise on this list, potentially even higher next year. So Devin Achane, a huge fan from me.
We have the same number 4.
Our second agreement of the podcast, I believe. Number 10 and number 4 we match on.
My number 3 is Saquon Barkley. I can't fault him at all for the year he just had. Like, even in the slightest, I'm sorry. I this is a lot heavily, obviously, when you talked about Saquon, I don't even think you mentioned a single stat because nothing you say will really favor him to really even be a fucking top 10 running back, if I'm being honest.
Literally.
But I really don't care. I don't think he didn't suffer any injuries. He didn't have some one-off year last year. He just had one of the best seasons from a running back we've ever seen last year. And this offense this year was dysfunctional as hell. Coaching was dysfunctional as hell. I'm not going to fault that for him at all. I'm sorry. I can't. I think he's one of the most complete backs in the league. I think is one of the most complete backs in the league. Yeah. One of the most complete backs we've probably ever seen.
That's very fair.
And I think he's still top 3.
That's very fair. I'll move on to my number 3, and you'll see my reaction to your number 8 ranking. I have Jahmyr Gibbs at number 3. A guy that put up 1,200 on the ground.
I can't agree with this, bro. I can't. Derrick Henry is not top. I mean,
I'll get to my reasoning once we get there. But I ultimately have Jahmyr Gibbs.
He's
at
not
number 3.
bad. Like, he's great, but it's like there's no projection in this. You think he's gonna post like the same numbers he did next year? You think these guys aren't gonna get better? These are the
I think it
young
goes off
backs
of a lot
of the league.
things, because I think Jahmyr Gibbs also took a step back from last year, and I think
that offensive line also did too.
Yeah, you could say the same thing about the Ravens' offensive line. I get it that let me finish my Jahmyr Gibbs talk, and then I'll get into the Derrick Henry, which is the real thing. Jahmyr Gibbs, a guy that put up 1,200 yards on the ground this year, 13 touchdowns, averaged 5 per carry, and was more involved in the passing game, 616 yards through the air, 5 touchdowns, a home run threat with the ball in his hands, 3rd in forced missed tackles at 62, 6th in offensive grade, 2nd in receiving grade. A guy that truly does it all. Probably not a workhorse back, but a guy that is super dynamic with the football in his hands, and maybe the most skilled or second most skilled running back in the league just as far as skill set. But yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs falls at number 3. And now we'll move on to my number 2, where I do have Derrick Henry, and I'll dive into it a ton just so you can understand my point of view. A guy that was 5 yards short of putting up 1,600 yards this year, had 16 touchdowns. He was tied 3rd in 10-plus yard runs at 36, 2nd in 15-plus yard design runs at 21. He had 79 runs resulting in a first down. He had the highest average box defenders at 7.87. The next closest wasn't even remotely close. He was the highest at 7.8. And he was also 2nd in EPA per rush. So this is a guy, I understand your point of he plays with Lamar Jackson. 100%, I think you can easily say that does benefit him. But also, another thing that you mentioned, which I don't believe is true, is the games that Lamar missed. He had his highest rushing game against Green Bay, 216 yards and 4 touchdowns. The only game this season that he featured over 25 carries in a game. He went for 216 yards and 4 touchdowns. He's a guy that gets better as the game goes on. He's a guy that has had, 1,000 yards in 7 consecutive seasons if you take away the year where he got injured after the 8th game, where he was averaging like 120 yards per game. He's a guy that does not get fazed, as I mentioned, by a loaded box. You can go watch that Bills game, and they were doing everything they could to crowd that line, and it did not matter. If it wasn't for an all-time choke job from the Ravens, they easily win that game. But I think I have to put respect on a guy that has done it for this long, a guy that people didn't think was going to keep on continuing this success, and he's doing it year in and year out. Now, if you were to say this is a fantasy draft and I get the first overall pick and I got to choose between Derrick Henry and Jahmyr Gibbs, obviously I have to factor in age at that point. But if you're telling me I need to go win a Super Bowl next year and I have a certain team with a certain foundation, I'm going to take the guy that I can give the ball to 35 times, and he's going to go out there and get me 200 yards. Because players like Jahmyr Gibbs and the guy who I have at number 1, those are guys that have not proven at this point that they are workhorse bell cow running backs yet. This is a guy that's very old school, a guy that you can give the ball to, as I mentioned, 25, 30
that's
times.
Saying in rushing, though. Those guys provide like 5 times what Derrick Henry does in the receiving game.
100%.
They make up for that. They don't have to run 30 times because they're featured so heavily in the passing game.
I agree with you. And that is a part where I can also take into account where you factor into Derrick Henry's rushing with having a backfield mate in Lamar Jackson. Guys like Jahmyr Gibbs, Devon Achane, Bijan Robinson, these are never guys that are going to be close to the near top of the league in average box defenders face, because they are able to do multiple other things outside of running the ball. But the fact that when Derrick Henry is in that backfield, teams know what is coming 90% of the time. They're loading the box no matter what. They have Lamar Jackson, one of the best passers that we've ever seen, the highest passer rating average in NFL history. And they are loading the box with almost 8 defenders a play because they are so terrified of number 22 lined up in the backfield. I get it, 100%. Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, Devon Achane, all these running backs. Derrick Henry has never been a guy that's a threat through the air. But I think the fact that this is a guy that you know what's coming, and it does not matter. You cannot stop him. This is a guy that is without a doubt a top 5 running back of all time, and is probably going to be higher, especially continuing his career on Baltimore. 100%, I can understand your reasoning that these guys, and again, I had Jahmyr Gibbs at number 2 when I originally made this ranking, but I really sat down and I thought about it.
In there.
What?
That I think if we had listeners, just without a doubt, top 5 running back of all time.
I think longevity, I think, plays into fact. I think skill set plays into a fact. I think being 6'3", 250, if you do a fantasy draft with top 5 running backs, I don't think there's 5 that I can get to before I take Derrick Henry. That's my personal opinion. Maybe that's biasness because I've got to witness a guy rush for 1,500 yards, 6 times?
I don't know, man.
Over the
Jim
last
Brown
8 years.
was doing his thing.
No, trust me. I mean, I don't know if I take
But
him,
I don't know. Like, without a doubt, that seems like – I feel like if you say without a doubt, that means he has to comfortably be top 5. Like, as high as 3?
I think without doing any research, I would probably say he's the only running back in history with 6 1,500-yard rushing seasons. That has got to account for something. He's had 16 touchdowns in 4 seasons.
I don't know if that's true.
I mean, again, I don't know. I'm just rapid firing right now. I got going once the Derrick Henry talk happened, but I think I don't know. I think we're not fully understanding what we're witnessing with Derrick Henry turning 32.
I'll admit I did have Derrick Henry too low.
Yeah,
but I think you had him too high.
Yeah, maybe he's not. Maybe a lot of people wouldn't put him over a Gibbs or an Achane or even a Saquon or what it may be, but
I think those are the ones I for sure would not put him over.
I
think you could put him at 5, or I think I would put him at 5 if I were to remake it. But I think Gibbs, Saquon, Bijan, and Achane would all still be above him.
So what is if we had 2020 Derrick Henry on this list, where does he rank for you? Because
I think he rank a lot higher because he's a lot younger. I'm also taking to a fact like next year and the year, and projecting. I'm not going so heavily off just last year.
Yeah,
I'm looking at what they still have. And he's got his – I mean, that's just how it's going to be. He's going to have to continue to prove me wrong every year like a running back at his – we've never seen that. We've never seen this.
And that's why –
that's the thing. That's the thing. So it's like, how can I just confidently just say he's going to do it every year, keep doing it, because we've never seen this. That's just what it's going to be, is he's going to have to prove us or me and any other NFL fan wrong that he can still do this every year at 33, 34 years old, because it's literally we've never seen nothing like it.
Yeah, and I truly believe that he will continue success.
So that's why I can't confidently say he's gonna post the same thing again next year, because it's just like, I don't know.
No, I get it. I can understand the age talk, but I think when you have someone that we've never seen, I have to put respect on it. And at the end of the day, we can factor in potential. We can do all these different things, but a guy that's going out there for 8 straight years now and doing what he does, when everybody knows what's coming. I can't not put Derrick Henry that high, and that's just me personally. This is our biggest one. I think this is probably the biggest difference that we'll have on any of our rankings, and I'm sticking beside it. I confidently believe Derrick Henry is the second best back in the league, and next year he definitely could have a down year. He definitely could dip, but I think a lot of people looked at this year was going to be a down year for Derrick Henry. Halfway through the year, people were talking about it's a down year, and he ended up with 1,600 yards and 16 touchdowns. That'd be, maybe the best year for 80% of running backs on this list. So I just have to continue to respect Derrick Henry. But enough of that. I'll let you move on to number one. Let you get off your talk about your boy before I get into my thing.
Yeah, our consensus number one, Bijan Robinson. Watch this guy play football every week, and I'm glad he's on my team. What he provides in the run game, the receiving game, his best dual threat running back in the league. I mean, he's just insane. And then the biggest knock on him going into this year was he just doesn't have that home run playability, and he completely shut that up, having like the two longest rushes in the league this year. Yeah, I mean, he's amazing. He's like Jesus on the football field. I mean, he's impossible to tackle. I mean, he's phenomenal. He's a phenomenal player. And I don't have the advanced analytics, all the stats to put it up. I know Devin does, so I'll let him get to that. But yeah.
Yeah, I'll give your boys some rightful glaze. My number one is Bijan Robinson, obviously. This is a guy that gets it done on the ground and through the air, having nearly 1,500 rushing yards along with 7 touchdowns, average 5.1 on the ground. He also tagged along 79 catches, 820 yards, and 4 touchdowns through the air. He had the longest run resulting in a touchdown this year at 93 yards. He was third in offensive grade at an 86.6, ninth in rushing grade at an 83.4, fourth in receiving grades at an 88.1. He was tied third in 10-plus yards run at 36. And these next two statistics were the biggest ones because he was miles above any other running back when it comes to these. He had 86 missed tackles forced. That was first by 19. 19. That is the same difference as number 2 to number 13. And this is a new statistic that I just learned about. This is called elusive rating. This is a PFF signature stat measuring success and impact of a runner with the ball independently off the blocking. He had a 120.8 grade in that. The next closest rusher was 96.9. Almost 24 points difference between him and the next closest back. And then after that, you have a lot of backs really close to each other. You got a 96.9, you got a 94.3, bunch of running backs in the 80s. I mean, the guy was miles above running backs this year. I think, as I mentioned with Gibbs, I think the biggest knock with Bijan that you could say is maybe he's not that bell cow running back. He might not be a guy that can ever be a 320 carry type of guy. But with that being said, he had 5 games this year with 20-plus carries, and he averaged 134 yards per game in those games. So I
think also, too, that's not really the biggest knock that you might think because, sure, there's the advantages to running the ball, like such as, running the clock down and things like that, in the game, running is always better than passing. But I mean, like, if you're running the ball and let's say the best running backs in the league are averaging 5 yards per carry, even better than that, 6 yards per carry, when you're catching the ball, especially, Bijan, what is his yards per reception? Is it at like 10?
I can pull
like, would
that
you
up
rather
for
them?
you.
And same with like Gibbs, would you rather them run the ball or catch the ball? I mean, they're getting more yards in the catch, So sure they aren't the bell cow to get 300 plus rushes, but I mean they make up for it in the receiving game, and when they catch the ball, insane things happen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
10.4 for.
I think the only reason why I bring that up as a knock, I think teams that are able to run the ball are obviously one of the most successful teams in the league. And I think it just piles on that. You got a 3rd and 4 with the game on the line, and you don't want to risk passing and a drop pass or coverage. It's not like, every time you pass, these guys are going to be open. You want to be able to control the line of scrimmage, and it's not like a huge knock. It's like if I had to. I mean, there's a lot of running backs on this list that really don't have any holes. I'm just nitpicking things. Like even the other thing that I will say about Bijan that's a small nitpick is he had 4 fumbles this year on 366 touches. That's like a very small knock. He was, I think, tied second in fumbles. I forgot who led the league. I think it was with 6 fumbles. Then there was like 5 running backs with 4. So that's like another small area I'd like to see him clean up. As a running back, you always want to be at that number 2 or below, 2, 1, or 0 fumbles. So 4 is definitely a little bit on the higher side. But again, it's a very small knock. That's just something that he would have to clean up in the future. But I think he's overall one of the most clean, perfect type of running backs that you can have in the league. So rightfully so, your boy ends up number 1 on the list consensus. So we favored each other on what, number 1, number 4, and number 10, and then not humongously different. Besides obviously the Derrick Henry ranking, which I'm interested. I'm interested to see if you guys, which side you guys are on. If you guys are in the middle, what it may be. That's interesting because Derrick Henry is probably the most polarizing back on this list as far as rankings. I mean, you could argue like a CMC or a Saquon or something like that, but yeah, Henry is definitely a guy where it's like it's interesting to see where certain people have him ranked. But me personally, I don't know. I think I'm super biased to be able to witness a player like this for his entire prime, and it's still going on at 31. I can't. I can't get enough. I'm super stoked to continue watching him, and I think he's really going to do similar things next year. Now, Gibbs can go out there and have 2,400 total yards next year, and he can easily take over number 2 and potentially number 1. But Derrick Henry is he's gonna stay in my top 2 for as long as he keeps rushing.
Is David Montgomery? What's his contract?
I believe he's a free agent. I want to say.
I think Gibbs and Bijan, you can probably expect their best seasons next year, barring injury. Both their backs that they split or,
What? But that is also another thing that, and that's why I talk about the bell cow part is like,
I think that benefits them.
I think it does
in the long run.
I think Gibbs was a guy that started 4 games last year. He had 200 more rushing yards, 3 more rushing touchdowns, and averaged 0.6 more yards per carry. And this year, where he started all 17 games, was indeed the featured back. He took a little bit of a dip, and it's not a bad dip.
But he started, yards. But I mean, I mean, if you look at the carry percentage, I'm sure it's not too different.
Yeah, but I think it more so can go into a game planning aspect. When carries are being took, if they're first down to second down to third down carries, I think that matters. I think, drives matter. Are you getting the ball at the end of the half, beginning of the half, things like that. I think a lot of things go into play for that and things you got to take into account. But yeah, it very well could. He could pop off or he could have a similar season, which again, 1,200 yards, 13 touchdowns on 5 per carry and tagging along over 600 yards through the air is not a bad thing. I mean, if he does that for the rest of his career, he'll be a Hall of Famer. So, yeah, these guys definitely could have ridiculous seasons, but we'll just have to see. We'll have to see. But those are our rankings. as I said in the beginning of the episode, let us know what you guys think. Let us know what you guys agree, disagree with. Let us know if we're idiots or geniuses. And yeah, we'll be back next week ranking more of our top 10 positions, more NFL news going around, and we'll see you guys next time. I'm out. Peace.